and the area is a hub for globally renowned science and technology firms. This area has the potential to be Europe's Silicon Valley. To make that a reality, we need a systematic approach to attract businesses to come here and to grow here. At the moment, it takes 2.5 hours to travel between Oxford and Cambridge by train.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to our monthly political roast. Today's special, the January Political Clown Awards. January has ended, and the main contender for the award is, drumroll, Rachel Reeves, of course. Who else?
There is no way to commute directly by rail from places like Bedford and Milton Keynes to Cambridge. And there is a lack of affordable housing right across the region. In other words, the demand is there, but there are far too many supply-side constraints on economic growth here. We are going to fix that.
In this video, you will see another reason why, and we will see if she will win the award in February. For the month of January, Keir Starmer was involved in a lot of circus plays, but the award has to belong to Rachel Reeves. Tonight, we're taking a long, hard look at how Britain's been slowly, oh so slowly, strangling itself, particularly the working class and our cherished pensioners, all in the name of economic growth by none other than our old pals in Labour. And if you think things couldn't possibly get any worse, just wait until you hear what they're planning next. Now, let's start by reminding everyone of the perennial favourite, Labour's endless obsession with pensions. Every time the budget needs plugging, who do they turn to? You guessed it. The very pensioners who, heaven forbid, don't vote for them. It's as if Labour thinks pensioners are the sacrificial lambs to fund their ever-expanding spending spree. And believe me, they do it with a flourish that would make even the most seasoned circus performer blush. Picture this. You've spent your entire life scrimping and saving, only to have your hard-earned pension poked and prodded until there's barely enough left to buy a decent cuppa. And why? Because, apparently, pensioners don't cast their votes for Labour.
The Oxcam ARC was initially launched in 2003, over 20 years ago. But the project was then dropped by the previous government in 2021. We are not prepared to miss out on the opportunities any longer. So working with the Deputy Prime Minister, who is already driving forward vital work in the region.
Well, excuse me if we're not thrilled about being used as the budget's cash cow, eh? Speaking of cash cows, let's move on to the pièce de résistance of today's farce. Rachel Reeves's growth speech. Yes, you heard that right. Ever since the election, the Labour government has trumpeted economic growth as its overriding priority. And what did we get? A dazzling speech in Oxfordshire that promised everything from new runways to railways, green energy, and investments in every nook and cranny of the country. It was all so grand, so optimistic, that even a pessimistic Brit like me almost believed it. Almost. But here's the kicker. For all the promises and pomp, one major reform was conspicuously missing. Yes, ladies and gents, while the Chancellor was busy dreaming up a utopia of infrastructural miracles, there was not a peep about actually lifting the burden on our small businesses. In plain English, Labour's great plan for economic growth is all sizzle and no steak. They talk about getting projects out of planning hell and into the real world. But what about the real world where our hard-working tradespeople and small business owners are struggling to keep the lights on? Take, for instance, the call for regulators to adopt a pro-growth attitude. The Chancellor hinted at HMRC cutting the staggering 25 billion and over 280 million hours spent on tax compliance by small firms. Brilliant, isn't it? Imagine all that time saved. If only Labour could apply half as much energy to actually reforming the procurement processes that lock out small construction and engineering firms. Instead, our budding entrepreneurs are left to fumble through bureaucratic red tape, while the big boys continue to thrive on inefficiency and cosy deals.
We are going further and faster to unlock the potential of the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor. First, we are funding the transport links needed to make the Oxford-Cambridge Growth Corridor a success, including East-West Rail, with new services between Oxford and Milton Keynes starting this year, and road upgrades to reduce journey times between Milton Keynes and Cambridge. East West Rail will also support vibrant new and expanded communities along the route.
And let's not forget the much-touted crackdown on late payments. Yes, Labour proudly proclaims that this will give a huge lift to small businesses' cash flow and relieve the chronic stress faced by overworked business owners. It sounds like a miracle solution until you realise it's merely a band-aid on a gaping wound. Meanwhile, the Employment Rights Bill looms large, with 9 out of 10 small employers raising concerns. If that isn't a recipe for disaster, I don't know what is. It seems that for every half-decent measure, Labour's busy cooking up another regulation that will stifle hiring and choke off staffing levels. Brilliant strategy, Labour, if your aim is to ensure that even your own supporters end up jobless. Now, let's be brutally honest. The Chancellor's speech in Oxford was all about better connectivity, upgraded transport, and improved utilities. These are exactly the kinds of promises that would get any small business owner's heart racing, if only they weren't constantly waiting for Labour to actually deliver. Instead, what do we get? A bunch of grandiose ideas wrapped up in buzzwords and left to simmer in the hope that one day, somehow, the shovels will be in the ground and the cranes will be up in the sky. But until then, Britain's working class and pensioners are left holding the bag. Listen up, folks. If you're tired of being shortchanged and sidelined by a government that treats your future like a never-ending funding experiment, then it's time to reevaluate where your vote goes. Labour has shown time and again that they're perfectly happy to use pensioners as a fiscal dumping ground and to leave small businesses grappling with red tape and over-regulation. It's a vicious cycle of empty promises and delayed projects that keeps Britain struggling while the political elite pat themselves on the back. So, what's the takeaway here? Simple. If you're a hard-working Brit, a small business owner, or a pensioner who's seen your savings dwindled by government grabs, then it's high time to say no more. Labour's not exactly the party of change. They're the party of same old, same old. And frankly, the alternative doesn't have to be. I say, let's stop voting for a party that's content with milking us for every last penny. Let's cast our ballots for someone who understands that the economy isn't just about fancy speeches and elaborate plans. It's about real-life, down-to-earth support for those who actually keep Britain running. And if that means giving Labour a good old kick in the pants at the ballot box, then by all means let's do it. Because if you ask me, things can only get worse if we keep handing over our future to a party that couldn't care less about the very people they claim to represent. So here's my rallying cry, dear viewers. Let's not allow another decade of broken promises and endless tax grabs. Let's stand up for the working class, for our pensioners, and for a Britain that deserves better. When you step into that polling booth next time, remember this message. Labour may promise growth, but all they've ever delivered is a gradual, painful squeeze on your savings and a parade of bureaucratic bungling. It's time for a change that doesn't cost you your future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the absurdity of it all. If you're fed up with a government that treats your pension like a piggy bank for political experiments, then share this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, remember, your vote is your voice. Let's use it to demand better. And until next time, stay cheeky, stay informed, and for goodness sake, keep your money where it belongs, in your pocket, not in the Labour treasury.